Hello and welcome to Team PokeMart, your one-stop shop for things that you need to stop and or shop for. We've got Pokeballs, Pokedolls, and Pokemon, obviously. Or maybe not so obviously because we are a PokeMart and not legally allowed to sell Pokemon, but let's you and me make a deal, eh? If you don't tell Officer Jenny about our little business arrangement here, then I won't tell her about your addiction to Pokeweed. Alright, I'm glad we've got that sorted. And today, as part of our summer sale, even though it's not summer, we have a large shipment of Squirtle that will help you really ride that surf. And if you don't have a way to quote-unquote ride that surf, well that's fine, because when purchasing one of our adorable blue turtley things, you will receive this subscribe board, the purchasing of which will enable you to ride the waves of regular Team Pokemon content uploaded straight into your YouTube feed. But moving on with today's topic, we will be discussing the last but certainly not least member of the Kanto starter Pokemon trio. So it's time to dive right in and learn more about our cute turtle friend Squirtle. Squirtle is the third option from which you as a trainer can choose from the first generation, and as a pure water type, it completes the grass, fire, water triangle of mutually assured destruction. Squirtle itself resembles a tiny turtle with a blue body and purple or red eyes. Its signature shell is yellow on the bottom and a brownish color on top, and while it is often seen walking upright on its hind legs, it can also be seen running on all four, though not as commonly. Squirtle's name is a simple combination of squirt and turtle. It is a squirting turtle, which is terrifyingly coincidentally a very niche category of video on Red and Blue Tube. The Japanese is a bit more interesting, however, being Zenigame. Zeni meaning money and game becoming kame through the wonder of Rendaku. And if you've never studied Japanese and don't know what Rendaku is, it's basically the Japanese intentionally changing letters in certain words, quite specifically to confuse people attempting to learn the language. Kame, of course, meaning turtle, and when put together, Zenigame means baby pond turtle, and the reason for Zeni being part of the name is that the backs of Squirtle are said to look like old coins. However, Squirtle have not been used as legal tender in this world for many centuries now, unfortunately. I mean, if they still were, I'd be pretty rich right now. Now, one striking feature of a Squirtle's appearance is that it is often adorned by its cute, rounded tail. The tail itself is a reference to a Japanese legend, which is the Minogame, a turtle that lived 10,000 years and grew its tail from seaweed, which, you know, doesn't sound like the most productive use of 10,000 years of time, but to each their own. Meanwhile, the Squirtle shell is incredibly strong, allowing it to protect or attack, but most importantly, even have a nap. And of course, Squirtle can be a bit mischievous from time to time, but they are generally more timid than, say, a Charmander, who is better known as the delinquent starter Pokemon. And while Squirtle are given out as starters, they are also found elsewhere on more secluded islands with either other Squirtle or even their evolved forms of the line, although this is scarce. But as such, if you train your Squirtle well, giving it lots of love and or rare candies, at level 16 you will see it evolve into the cheeky wonder that is Wartortle. Now, after evolving, one of the first things that trainers tend to notice about their new Wartortle is the fact that it is not Squirtle. Where did my cute Squirtle go? All the trainers say. Well, too bad, because you're stuck with whatever this is until Blastoise. But for some differences, we have a significantly more floofy tail compared to Squirtle's, and the magnificent Thor-like ears that have popped out on the sides of its head. While their color palettes are fairly identical when looking at the blue shell and blue body, Wartortle's ears and tail are a softer shade of blue, almost mimicking waves of the sea. And of course, most importantly, Wartortle also sports a set of pointed vampire teeth, which allows it to access the traditional call of the vampires, being blur. Wartortle's name is also a bit more complicated than Squirtle's in terms of origin, but not too different. Its name is a combination of war, tortoise, and turtle. Now, you may wonder, valued customer, why it is both turtle and tortoise are used in this name, since the term can be somewhat redundant in English. Well, shut up, I'm getting to that. Basically, a tortoise is a turtle on land, and a turtle is a tortoise in water. There are probably other differences, but I work in retail and I have no time for that. Wartortle have a longer body than Squirtle, though they have a tougher time keeping their balance on land and in water due to their tail and ears. It actually kind of reminds me of when I get into a pool and try to use one of those floaty noodle things, and instead of gracefully floating with it like a normal human people, I flail around like I'm riding a rodeo on a very uncooperative Sharpedo. But as a whole, Wartortle are not too much for most trainers to handle, and your efforts will very eventually pay off at level 36 when they evolve into the tanky mad lad that is a Blastoise. And now it's hard to believe your teeny tiny little turtle has evolved into a shellfish with cannons, isn't it? This almost 200-pound bipedal Pokemon can use its water cannons to cut through steel, concrete, and of course human flesh with ease. When unused, they are generally withdrawn back into a Blastoise's tough shell, which covers the majority of its body. With a deeper blue body than both Squirtle and Wartortle and a smaller, stubbier chode tail, Blastoise compromises some speed in order to make use of its naturally tanky shell, which grants it both good defense and special defense respectively. Blastoise's name also continues the trend laid out by Wartortle in that its English name is a combination of blast, which refers directly to its hydro cannons, and tortoise. It is a blast tortoise. The Japanese name Kamemax is likely a combination of kame, once again meaning turtle, and maximum, which could be in reference to both its size and the use of its cannons. And I don't know about you, but I think the name is quite fitting. I mean, just how much more maximum could we possibly get? Well, quite a bit actually, and more on that later. But Blastoise is steadfast, deeply loyal, and unshakable in its fighting style. It is constructed to take hits and retaliate with heavy damage. As seen in Pokemon Origins, Blue's Blastoise takes a direct Mega Punch to the face from Red's Charizard and did not flinch as it glared intently at his opponent, sending a shiver of fear into the Charizard in question. And as you'd expect, being one of the faces of the first generation, being on the front of the Pokemon Blue box art and all, Blastoise is universally revered as nostalgic and cool, and often considered a great rival. When one considers that Blue, your canonic rival, is often seen with a Blast Boy in various Pokemon media. In fact, if you look across all generations, Squirtle is actually the most popular Kanto starter Pokemon. That's right, it's not Charmander, and it's definitely not Bulbasaur, and of course Pikachu, you don't count, like ever, so Squirtle reigns supreme. Now, fun things tend to happen when a trainer gives its Blastoise a stone called Blastoiseite, and it then goes on to experience an unnatural temporary evolution into Mega Blastoise. Although unlike the very greedy Charizard, Blastoise only has one Mega form to evolve into. So you may ask yourself, what is better than 2 water cannons? Well, that would be 3. And what's better than 3 water cannons? Well, 4, of course. However, Mega Blastoise isn't quite that good, and he only gets 3. 2 of them on its little arm thingies, but what's more, Mega Blastoise's 2 back cannons are replaced by a much more central phallic large cannon that is also retractable, much like the normal 2 were. Its central cannon is also so far that when fully extended, it reaches over Mega Blastoise's head. So is it just me, or is he compensating for something? Like a small turtle penis? In any case, you'd think that with all of this added artillery, Mega Blastoise would be slower than regular Blastoise, and logically, you would be correct. But Pokelogically, you would be very wrong, as you often are, which is why you watch these videos. Mega Blastoise does not forfeit any speed when it evolves, and instead it gains additional defense and special defense, as well as a substantial increase in special attack due to the force of all 3 cannons, making Mega Blastoise a very special boy. And while Mega Blastoise certainly is a big boy, or I suppose girl, it does pale in comparison to the sheer size and wall of defense that is a Gigantamax Blastoise, an abomination of nature brought to life through the ever questionable people of the Galar region. Gigantamax Blastoise's eyes glow a light blue, and the color surrounding its arms and legs lightens to a significantly brighter blue than its original form. A purplish red hue goes on to surround its shell, if you can even call it that anymore, because whilst it once only held 2 cannons in its base form, Gigantamax Blastoise has now armed itself with an incredible and absurd 31 separate cannons, which allow it to adapt into many combative situations in battle. And if you thought that Blastoise cutting through concrete and steel was impressive, well, you're easy to please, but get a load of this. One legend describes Gigantamax Blastoise's cannon force as so powerful that it can even blast holes directly through mountains. Incredibly frightening indeed, so much so that it's leaving me shell-shocked. Pun not intended, but I'll take it. And now, as I may or may not have alluded to earlier, many trainers have used a member from this line on their team, such as the ever questionable Ash. And Ash's Squirtle starred as one of his main party members all the way back in the original anime for Generation 1. Ash first met Squirtle in the episode Here Comes the Squirtle Squad, where his Squirtle is seen as the leader of a gang with his strikingly Kamina-like sunglasses. And while this band of misfit Squirtle was seen as mischievous by most everyone around them, Ash, a rather mischievous man in his own right, and when I say man, I mean child. In any case, he went on to befriend their leader and talk them into helping them defeat Team Rocket. And afterwards, Ash's Squirtle arbitrarily joined him on his journey. Speaking more about the Squirtle Squad though, as mentioned, they originally were no more than troublemakers until Ash and his party convinced them to do more with their lives and serve the greater good of their community. As such, they would go on to become a firefighting group, and Ash's Squirtle would come to rejoin them in their efforts later in the series. Another minor thing to note is that the Squirtle Squad would go up against Team Wartortle, led by Captain Aiden, in a firefighting competition. Meanwhile, in the manga The Electric Tale of Pikachu, Ash's Squirtle is caught off-screen, or more accurately off-page I suppose, and while we don't see it, the manga does take a moment to note that he has one, as it emerges from a Pokeball, and the narrator notes that Ash has been quite busy since we last saw him. Meanwhile, we also have Gary's Squirtle, who is first seen in Challenge of the Samurai, where it battles and ultimately defeats Samurai's Metapod. At the same time, as a viewer, we were unaware of who the Squirtle belonged to. However, by the episode, the ties that bind, it is completely revealed that a certain trainer took the Squirtle into their care, and it was none other than Gary Oak, Pokemon Master. Although at this point it was no longer a Squirtle and had instead evolved all the way into a Blastoise. Meanwhile, in Pokemon Origins, the Gary counterpart Blue chooses, smugly, to have a Squirtle on his team when he realizes that Red has taken Charmander, knowing full well that water types are strong against fire types because Blue has apparently played scissors, paper, rock before. And Blue Squirtle, when we first see it in battle, is very well trained and without hesitation listens to every one of Blue's commands, dodging and attacking swiftly, beating Red's Charmander without any issue whatsoever. And it would continue to be pivotal for Blue as he became champion, if only briefly, loser. And in Blue's fight against Red, we see it as a Blastoise. And while Blue's Blastoise proves formidable, able to single-handedly take out both Red's Persian and Jolteon, it does ultimately fall to the Charizard in a close match. Some more fun facts about the Squirtle line. In the original Generation 1 anime, Ash's first choice after much deliberation the night before going to Professor Oak's lab was going to be a Squirtle. And through the process of making that decision, he missed his alarm and failed to retrieve said Squirtle. Apparently, female Squirtle are incredibly rare since there is an 87.5% chance of a Squirtle being male. Interestingly enough, Squirtle in fact had a signature move as of Generation 1 being Skull Bash. At the time it was held by only Squirtle, Wartortle and Blastoise, but now other Pokemon can use it, thus ruining one facet of uniqueness that once was the Squirtle line. Blastoise is known as the Shellfish Pokemon, a title which it interestingly shares with both Kabuto and Kabutops, proving just how unshellfish it is by its willingness to share. And finally, a truly useless fact, Sugimori's early depictions of Wartortle showed it as having light-colored ears when compared to the rest of its blue body. However, early promotional art is seen depicting it with ears the same color as its face, which is weird and I don't like it. Please take it away. Alright trainers, you now have an extensive overview of our newest stock here at Team PokeMart. And as you can see, Squirtle are wonderful companions sometimes, very powerful and surprisingly graceful, though a real pain in the ass when they get up to their mischief. But please do make sure to stop by Team PokeMart to say hi, which you can do in the comments below. And if you're interested in some of our other merchandise, then please do click these tantalizing links over here. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for regular updates of our new stock. But for now, this has been Team PokeMart, and I'll see you next time.